You open your eyes, gasping for air. Your heart is hammering against your ribs, your muscles are locked tight, and a cold sweat clings to your skin. The room around you is perfectly quiet and entirely safe. Your body is behaving as though you barely survived a lethal attack, despite the lack of any physical danger. No sound broke the silence. No actual event took place in the real world. But for a few disorienting seconds as you stare at the ceiling, the phantom threat you just escaped feels significantly more urgent and far more convincing than the solid bed beneath you. Nightmares strip away the context we rely on to understand the world. They trap the mind in a closed loop, feeding it pure, unchecked emotion without any outside reference points to ground you. The terror of a nightmare proves how flawlessly your brain can simulate reality using nothing but internal ingredients. When you are awake, your emotions are constantly cross-checked against reality. If you feel a sudden spike of fear, you look around. You use your eyes, ears, and logic to verify your surroundings, and that external context dilutes the panic. When you enter REM sleep, the stage characterized by rapid eye movement, your brain cuts off those outside signals. It turns inward, transforming into an active, entirely private cinema. During this phase, the prefrontal cortex, your logical control center, powers down. Without that filter, the dreaming mind loses skepticism. Hallways stretch into infinity, and gravity reverses. Deep inside, however, the amygdala, your center for threat detection, remains highly active. The amygdala blasts an intense, continuous signal of immediate danger into your system. Even though the narrative playing out in your mind is fictional, the chemical alarm bells ringing in your head are entirely real. Because your logic center is asleep, your brain has no way to fact-check that panic signal. You are locked in an inescapable loop of absolute emotional certainty. To trigger that intense fear, your brain does not need to invent literal monsters. It simply needs to assemble the right everyday ingredients. The mind stitches together disparate, harmless fragments of memory. It might pull the architecture of a childhood hallway, cast it under harsh hospital lights, and play a random voice from an old conversation. Alone, none of these things are threatening, but together, they often serve as symbolic stand-ins for unresolved emotional material from your waking life, unspoken anxieties, lingering grief, or just the accumulated stress of a difficult week. And because your sleeping body is deprived of outside sensory input, there is nothing to prove this eerie montage is fake. The dream becomes the only reality available to you. Within this closed loop, fear acts as a lens. It narrows your attention, stripping away the normal, mundane distractions that usually clutter your waking life. Waking life is always a mixture of background noise and logic. A nightmare feels sharper because it is distilled, undeniable emotion. When you finally wake up, the transition is a physical collision, where the dream world and the real world temporarily overlap. Your consciousness returns, but your nervous system cannot instantly switch off its fear response. Your body is still busy pumping adrenaline into a perfectly safe room. Those specific stress hormones act like a chemical highlighter. They signal to your brain that this event is critical for your survival, and the memory must be stored. This stress memory mechanism explains why you might forget 10 pleasant dreams, but retain the vivid, emotional outline of a single disturbing nightmare for years. Nightmares are responses to stress, to sleep disruption, or emotional overload. They are not a sign that your mind is failing. A nightmare is the brain doing exactly what it evolved to do, practicing threat detection and processing stress to protect the host. The next time a nightmare leaves you panicked in the dark, remember that your mind is simply speaking to you in its oldest, most primal language, emotion before logic.